All right, we are live once again, and I think this is now, and I'll show you all the ones I've gotten so far once you all pile in here. This is our fourth time doing this. We've been doing this now for 4 months, and what we are doing, and I'll show you, let me pull up the website so you can see exactly what we're doing here. Give me a second here. I'll pull up the rest of this stuff here. Yeah, I'm actually ahead of the game this week so far. I'm so proud of myself. So tomorrow is a catch-up day where I'm going to clean up this disaster I am currently living in my office down here. And I'm also going to get the credits updated because I haven't done that in a while. So it's a lot when you run your own channel. There's a lot of stuff. There's never a shortage of things to do, which is what I love about what I do. Like you've always got something going on. So let me show you what this is. Let me go live on Amazon here too. So you can see exactly what we're talking about here. So let me go to my web browser. I'm going to turn it to this thing. And first I'll say hello to everybody. And yeah, I'm going to wait a few minutes before we open this up because we got to get some people in here to watch. Otherwise, it's like kind of counterproductive, or at least whatever the word is. Romeric is here first this time. Hello again. B. Tabalba is here. MSX Droid is here. Thomas Woodford is here. Hello, everybody. Yeah, so we're going to be opening up the blind box, and I'll show you what it looks like here. This is the blind box offering from the Video Game History Foundation. So what they do every month is that they send me this old magazine in an envelope, and we don't know what we're going to get. It could be anything. And I have them sending me the stuff from the 80s and the 90s. That's what they're sending me. So in this envelope is the latest edition of it, and what I thought I would do is a couple of things before we get started. The first is show you what we've received from them in the past. So the best one I got so far was the first one, which is Game Pro Magazine. Now, we haven't opened it up yet, so we're going to leave this closed here so you can see that we haven't done it yet. So this is the one that we got first. And this was a great one because the date on it was May of 1995. This was right when everything was moving off of the Genesis and the Super Nintendo to the PlayStation and the Saturn and all that stuff. So that was like a real nice generational switchover there. So that was what I loved about that edition. And then we got the second one was this Nintendo Power. And this was from December, I think, of 1997, if I'm not mistaken. It was I think it was December of 97. So this was like right in the middle of the whole Super Nintendo, the Nintendo 64 craze, right? That was what that one was all about. And then I got this one, which was Ultra Game Players. I would say this one is probably the least exciting of the ones that we've received, but there was some cool ads in this one. And this was probably the latest edition, at least insofar as timeline is concerned, because this one was February of 98. So this one was a little newer than the other two. But this one by far, this Game Pro here, this was my favorite one. So that's what I went with there. And you know, it's so funny how the YouTube algorithm works, because like if I had that, like a NAS or something like that, I'd have like 3 times the number of viewers right now. It's kind of funny how that plays out. And then I thought what we would do also, because I have all these cool books that kind of fall into this category also. So I thought for the benefit of the Amazon viewers, I would show you a couple of, like whenever I do one of these, we look at a retro coffee table book that I've picked up over the years. And so this one I got a while back. I put these on my holiday list in the hopes that a family member will get me one of these. This one is called The Game Console. You can find it on Amazon at the link you see on screen. This is not the Home Shopping Club, but I just like this book a lot. I thought some of you might like it. And what's cool is when they printed it, they put a little texture on the controller part here, which is pretty cool. Aaron is here on Amazon. Hello there. And what's neat is I think the guy that does all the photos of game consoles on Wikipedia is the one that published this book. So all of these pictures, I think, are freely available on the Wikimedia Commons, but you can get them in book form here. And it's really cool to kind of look at all these things. Isn't it neat? And you get like a history of the console and all that other kind of stuff. So good stuff. Aaron is wondering if I do any giveaways. I don't typically do giveaways just because of all the legal stuff that you have to go through to do them correctly. So sorry about that. I generally don't do them. And here you've got the TurboGrafx 16, and you've got the Neo Geo CD, the links. Isn't this cool? He does like these teardowns. So this is a fun book. And of course, you could get all this information online, but it's nice to just have a book to thumb through every once in a while where you get everything in one place. And he's got all these like weird things you've never heard of before, like the ViewMaster Interactive Vision, the Memorex Vis 1992. These are all those CD systems that tried to make a difference. I wonder if they've got the Action Max in here. Let me see if I can find it. This is cool stuff. And by the way, we're going to have the magazine opening in a minute. MSX Droid wants to know, is there a chapter on MSX in the book? Well, that's an appropriate question for you to ask. So I will take a look and see. And you got the Sega CD. And I think they must have both variants of it. At least they should, right? You know, it's funny. They don't have the original Sega CD on here. That's kind of an omission, right? They got the second version. This would have been an awesome system. This was the Neptune, which would have been a Genesis 32X integrated into a single console. That would have been kind of cool. So let's see if there's anything on the MSX side. I'm pretty sure this is all just game consoles. A friend of mine had this. This is the Atari XE. Let me see if there. Oh, here's the Action Max. I had one of these. I think I sold it on eBay a while ago. So this is kind of crazy. This was one of these VHS things. And so you had the console, and then there was this siren light that you would attach to your television. There was like a suction cup on the back of it. And the video would have like a flashing thing that the sensor on the back of that sensor would pick up on. And what it would do is it would register, I think if you're, I forgot how it works, but there would be something that it would flash when something you could shoot at was on screen, and then it would use the light gun to register a score. But because it was just playing off your VCR, all you would see interactively would be the number in the thing there change. And they really hyped up the marketing on it. You should look up the advertising on this because it was kind of crazy. Catherine Schisler on Amazon is joining us. Hello there. Yeah, we're gonna open this magazine up in a few minutes, but I thought we would thumb through some of the cool retro books you can find on Amazon, because these are always kind of fun to play with. This is like a great gift for someone my age. I'm 40, almost 45. So like two-thirds of this book are all things from my childhood. But let's see if we can find one of these MSX systems. And there's stuff here you've never heard of before. Like here's the old Japanese Sega stuff. So if there's going to be anything MSX, I would imagine it would be somewhere in this era here, because you got the Atari 800. All right, so they do have computers because they got the Atari 800, but not the, yeah. I've got one of these in my closet. My wife had one. I should take it out and see if we can get it to work. But I'm not seeing any MSX stuff. Ah, the ColecoVision. I had this whole thing. This was the Atari 2600 add-on. Isn't that cool? Mark Smith, we have not yet opened the magazine. So I figured I would build some anticipation and some viewership before we went to town on it. So what I'm looking for right now, so what we're looking at right now is just the game console book. You can find this on Amazon. So I figured when I do these, I would start off with a book that you could get if you're really into this kind of stuff, like thumbing through things. But it doesn't look like there is any MSX stuff. Let me check the index here. So they break it down by generation. Yeah, it doesn't look like they've got, and it's funny because they have the Atari 800 in there. Oh, here we go. So here's the answer to your question. Everything they've omitted is in the back page here, and the MSX computer is the one that they omitted. So So that's what that's all about. So let me take some questions here. Thomas Woodford says, that is cool. Here, I'll pull the image back up here for you. Yeah, this book you can find on Amazon. It's about 20 bucks. And it's on my coffee table. It's one of those things where I would love to find time to read it because I haven't yet, and I've owned it for 2 years. William Wilkinson is here. I've got a bunch of others too. So every time we do one of these, I'll show you a new thing there. There's a rumor going around that you are part of the Kernia Brothers file trading network. Any truth to that? I have no idea what that is. So I don't even know what you're talking about. So I do not know the Kernia Brothers or the file trading network. So I've had nothing to do with that. But I will look it up because now I'm curious as to what people are saying I'm part of. It's about time I got roped into some kind of rumor, right? The Kernia Brothers file trading network. I have no idea what that is. So let me know more on that because I have no idea what that's about. Heffin Davies says, the algorithm thing is really weird. Usually there's a lot more than this. Yeah, it's weird how it goes, right? I think what happens is the algorithm typically will recommend the video if there's a topic that you as a subscriber are interested in. And because when you set these up, you load in all your metadata, I think it puts it in front of people that are interested. So in this instance, I don't think a huge part of my audience is into this topic, even though I'm into it. So I think that's what that's about. All right, give me 1 second here. We're going to unbox or open this up in a minute here because I've only got a limited amount of time today. And we'll get moving. And we'll get some magazines opened up here. So yeah, this is fun stuff. I always like doing these ones. All right. So let's take a look at the magazine here. And we're going to open this thing up. But Gerziak, now you've got me wondering, what the heck is this file trading network? Okay, so here is the envelope. Again, this is what we've received in the past. So this is what you get when you open it up. You get the magazine, a certificate of authenticity, and a nice cardboard backing there. So why don't we open this thing up and see what is inside. So here we go. How many people are watching right now? Let's see. Only 37. Isn't that sad? It's really sad. But let's do the opening. Here we go. Now you get a nice envelope here. You never know what's inside. And I'm going to flip it over so we can drag this out a little bit further. So we have our certificate of authenticity. So this is a legit magazine from whatever era you specify. So when I subscribed, I wanted 80s and 90s only, nothing later than that. So that's why the latest one I've received is 1998. So far I've been able to stay within the bounds of that. All right. So we have an ad on the back here for a PlayStation 2 game. So this one might be a little later than I'm supposed to get because I'm pretty sure I said 80s and 90s only. This is definitely a newer magazine than that. Well, let's flip this over. This is the 100% independent PlayStation magazine. And this was shipped to somebody in Black Earth, Wisconsin. The date on this one is March of 2001. So I think they're running out of the old stuff to send me. So that's what we ended up with here. So let's take a look through. Now, I'm not as nostalgic for this period of time because I was more, let's see, 2001, I was probably doing a lot more PC gaming. My brother had a PlayStation 2, and those, of course, were really hard to get when they first came out. Yeah, that's an ad you won't see today. So here's Star Wars Starfighter. I think that game was fairly well received. There was a lot of like Star Wars prequel games coming out at that point. This magazine, by the way, like all of the others I've received from them, this magazine is in really good shape. Yes, I don't have a lot of memories of any of these games because I did not have a PlayStation 2. My brother did, but I had, what did I have in 2001? I had a GameCube. So I bought a GameCube in December. Was it November? Yeah, I think like around the holiday season of 2001, I got the GameCube because I was living in my new house at that point. And then I got an Xbox a little bit later, but I never had the PlayStation. And hopefully you all are still there. The chat's been very quiet. So if you're still there, let me know. I know it's still streaming, and I know there's 37 people watching, and another 46 on Amazon right now. So here's some stuff on Final Fantasy. And so this is like when the PlayStation 2 was really starting to hit its stride. So we've got PlayStation 2 racing games here. Winback. And here's like some of these displays here. Let's see. Okay, we still got people here. Excellent. Yeah, I was a little disappointed here in S. Spooner too because I was expecting to see because what I had ordered was 80s and 90s, not the newer stuff. MSX Droid never had a PlayStation, but got the first Xbox. Phil Smith still uses it as a DVD. Actually, a lot of people credit the original Xbox as kind of the reason why, I'm sorry, the original PS2 as the reason why people got into DVDs. Because for many people, that was their first DVD player. Not for me, though. I had a DVD player in 1997. I was a big Laserdisc guy, and I liked the idea of having a single disc to play everything. Estel Savio says, hi, making me feel old. Yeah, this is 20 years ago. Isn't that crazy? Time really does fly. So yeah, there's some issues with the black backgrounds with the reflection. I'll try to adjust it differently. So what is this one? This is an iTrek FMD 200. So this thing, 20 years ago, not a VR headset. This is like a display for your PlayStation, $550 back then. So what does it do? Much like Sony's Japanese product, the Glasstron, the iTrek is an extremely lightweight, visor-like device that's worn like a pair of glasses. It looks like you have a big screen at a distance of 6 feet. So it gives you like the illusion of a 60-inch display at 6 feet away. It's got a high pixel count, it says. By today's standards, it'll probably be pretty low. And it's $550. But you could have probably gotten a good TV set back then for about that much. Nice CRT of some kind. Here's something else. This is kind of fun. The cheese video box. Has anyone made a video about this? So this allows you to connect to a VGA monitor, but they're disappointed in the quality. I think anything that has to like use a block of cheese as its thing there is probably what it is. All right, so these are some new releases. I'm always like more fascinated with the ads than I am with the actual content on these things. And what's kind of funny too is when you look at one of these newer magazines and then go back into the older stuff, how different the marketing is. And it's partly due to the technology that you can, you could more easily work with photographs in 2001 than you could in 1989 with, with these computers doing all the layout. Let's see, I remember buying the September 05 issue of this magazine. Oh, so Joshua here remembers buying the 2005 edition of this. Oh, was there a demo disc that came with these two? That must have been kind of cool. I loved the idea of demo discs because you never had a demo disc with like your old cartridge consoles, right? So that was pretty cool. William Wilkinson had a Philips Magnavox Blu-ray player, which in 1990, actually, if it was 97, it was a DVD player, because I don't think Blu-ray came out until much, much later, like 2008 or so. Yep, you're right. You corrected yourself there. Yeah, they were expensive. I had a Mitsubishi, which was the least expensive one at the time, and I probably paid $400 or $500 for that. And there wasn't that many movies available. I think when it first came out, there was like, it was a very small selection. But it was crazy, though, because they really started putting a lot of movies on disc. And I preferred, so what I liked about DVD was that it was cheaper than Laserdisc. You could fit the whole movie on the disc. The video quality was great. I mean, it was better than a lot of Laserdisc people thought it was going to be because it was compressed and they thought it was not going to be as good. So it had the video quality, lower cost. You got, I think all of the movies came letterboxed. Some had 2 discs. One was pan and scan and one was letterboxed, but you would get the same type of movie that you were looking for a lower price in a smaller space. And that's why I think it pushed out Laserdisc really quickly. But I remember on the Usenet forums, people were really upset about DVD coming out because it was really an issue here. Here's Red Faction. They trounced this one 4 out of 10. The Bouncer, great graphics with disappointing gameplay. Yeah, I feel like everyone was always trying to push the envelope. Everything had to be like 3D. Even when we got past the PlayStation 1 era, you look at all of these games, they're all like 3D rendered, and I think there's a real focus now on gameplay more than there used to be. Gran Turismo 3, the most anticipated PS2 racer yet. That was a good game, right? Like I said, I never had this, the PlayStation, so I can't relate to it. But there was always a lot of realism. The only thing that wasn't real about Gran Turismo was that you never crashed the cars. Resident Evil Veronica X. We got your subscription cards here, half off. Get them in. Knockout Kings. Devil May Cry, that's a classic, right? This was the first version of it, our first hands-on of Capcom's next big thing. And that's a multi-decade, multi-generational franchise, right? That's been around for a while. Phil Smith said PS1 was still going. Yeah, I think there was probably still some PS1 stuff at this point, right? Because this was... it was probably on the outs, right? Because this was March of 2001 is when this issue came out. Red Bull can remember some of this. Joseph Sakata says, to be honest, I'd rather play a Donald Duck game. Metal Gear Solid. ATV Off-Road Fury was my first PS2 game. Yeah, I can't remember which one we got from my brother. I do remember trying to find the console for him. My father finally found it somewhere. Because you couldn't get those. It was long after Christmas that we got him his PS2. He really liked GTA. Who wouldn't? That was kind of a real standout game. Red Bolt needs to look through some of their Nintendo Power. I had the original issue 1 Nintendo Power. Every kid did because they sent that one out for free with Super Mario 2. So I missed that. I wish I still had it somewhere. You can obviously download the PDF, but it's not the same as actually leafing through it. MDK2 Armageddon, Triple Play 2002. I don't play a lot of sports games, but now that they're all on Game Pass, I've been downloading them. So I played a little Madden the other night, and then I got the new baseball game that everyone's excited about. I haven't played it yet, but if it's free, it's like 70 gigabytes to download it, but it's there. Brandon saw me on the new Metal Jesus video. Thank you. Yeah, that was fun. Yeah, he reached out, and I was happy to do something with that. It was a good topic because it had just recently happened where, with that game I was talking about, we had, so the question, if you haven't seen the Metal Jesus video yet, you can go to his site and check it out. The question that was a viewer question was, name a game that took you forever to finish. And so there was this game on the Nintendo called Rampage. It was an arcade port. Not a very good game on the Nintendo. At the time, it was actually a pretty good port, but it hasn't held up over time. Very repetitive game. And so a friend of mine bought it way back in 1988 or so when it first came out. And then we would lend games to each other in the neighborhood because, you know, if you had a game that nobody else had, it was currency. You could swap it out and play somebody else's game. So I used to borrow his copy of it trying to get through it, never did. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, a friend of mine was in town visiting. I was showing him the analog console, so we figured we would play something, like a couch co-op game of some kind, and Rampage was what we settled on. And we had no idea that it had 128 levels. So we played through, we got to level 80. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and we're like, how many more levels are left here? And apparently there was a lot more, a lot more. Ace Combat 4. I have the new Ace Combat on the PC. I think this is another one available on Game Pass. You know what bums me out about the new Ace Combat? Is that they have a VR mode, but only on the PlayStation. And I bought it on the PC when it was on sale during one of those Steam things. I was hoping that it would have a VR mode for PC come out eventually, but it never did. But now there's like an independent VR game that's kind of like Ace Combat that I did get. I haven't played it yet. Maybe we'll do a VR game session one of these days. So this is Brakes Are for Sissies. Driving Emotion Type S. Is that a new? It must be the name of the game. Okay. Metal Slug X, or 10. So it's a port of a Neo Geo game on the PlayStation. See, this is like one of the few like 2D platformers you'll see, right? Does it have a review score? These are previews. And look at the lead sentence here. It says, here, I'll try to get this in view for you. Wow, this is truly a godsend for a system that only receives 2D. Oh, I'm sorry, let me start this again. This is truly a godsend for a system that rarely receives 2D action games. You see, there was a hunger for this stuff way back then, and it was a port, right? Because everything had to be 3D. Pretty funny stuff. Heffen says, I just can't get over how amazing games like Prince of Persia on PS2 seemed to look when I was young compared to looking back at those similarly aged games. Yeah, there's some of them, you know, it's funny. Some did look better than others. And you know what's funny? I think your imagination at the time made it look even more interesting, right, than it is today. It's really kind of funny how your brain plays tricks on you. Like, oh, this game, I remembered it being much better than it was before. All right, bear with me, folks. This one is called Dark Cloud. Hands-on with Sony's first PlayStation 2 RPG. All-Star Baseball 2002, Rogue Spear. These are all previews. Every one of them 3D. 4x4 Evolution. Like, this doesn't even look good. I don't think this would have looked good to me back then either. It's just like a big foggy, cloudy mess. You know what game I've been playing upstairs? I have Game Pass. I got the Series X. And there's a great game called Wreckfest on Game Pass. If you've seen some of my videos, I sometimes put it into my videos when we're looking at game streaming. It's like one of those destruction derby kind of games. It's so fun. And the graphics are amazing because they updid it for the Series X. And what's interesting is that Wreckfest does not appear as a Series X enhanced game, but it is. So I think they upped it, but they didn't change the label on the thing there. All right, let's see, I'm going to catch up on some comments here. Do I remember Quackshot? I think it was for the Sega Genesis. I don't think I had that one. My brother may have played it. We had a bunch of games that we would rent all the time, so it's definitely possible that we rented that one. Trap Exit had, one of his first games was Tekken Tag. So I was in college when the original PlayStation came out. You know, we played a lot of was NBA Jam on that. We loved that game. Partly because the computer would always make the games close. So one night the RA had to come and tell us to be quiet because we were playing. The game got a little intense. Brandon says that the Ace Combat is fun in VR, only 3 levels. It's just like a real quick thing. Yeah, there's I forgot the name of it, but there is an independent VR game that's come out recently. Nest Spooner, I left the Oregon Trail to play a banana throwing game and then straight to Larry the Lounge Lizard. Yeah, at least Larry was a fun game. Midway, a physical Avalon Hill game, filled the whole basement. Oh, that's interesting. Recipe Bob is here. MSX Droid-like Commandos on the PC. William Wilkinson is discovering the collector's market has driven things up significantly. $40 for a cartridge only. Yeah, if you got it still, it's worth something. But it's only worth what people are willing to pay for it. So you got to figure out when you need to sell, right? Eric's Variety Channel is here. Tropic said the PS2 had a decent amount of 2D games or 2D gameplay games. Yeah, I have to go back through and see what was out there on the PS2. I'd be interested in seeing what's there. Because, a majority of the games that I'm playing now are usually 2D games. Although we've been playing a lot of the Mario stuff with my kids. That's the one we've been spending the most time on. Kengo Tactics and Tricks. Yes, these games I have no memory of. Now here's a 3DO game, 3DO the publisher, WDL War Jets. Was it like a wrestling war, like airplane game? What is that about? World Destruction League is back. They're taking aerial combat to new heights with war jets. All of the mayhem is televised globally. So this would have been the kind of game I would have been into. It's probably something that sounds great in an ad, but doesn't play very well. Let me know if you've played that one. We'll have to go maybe find a copy of that somewhere. Yeah, this one I'd say, this is not a bad magazine if you were into the PS2, but this is kind of a dud for me because I had none of these things 20 years ago. But here's something neat. So that's right. Remember they had the little PS1 around this time, and they had the screen that you could get for it and make it a portable? And they've got the cell phone hooked up to it. Now, what's that all about? I never saw that. See that? It's like a little, that must be like a modem thing? All right, let's see what they're talking about here. The screen attaches to a portable power source. Yeah, right, so it wasn't, you had to plug it in somewhere. But I wonder what the cell phone thing is. It looks like the cell phone connects to the PS1, I'm guessing for network, but why would you do that versus just getting a modem? Yeah, and what they're asking here is there a comparable screen for the... Now, this was a fun game that I've seen recently on some YouTube channels, Outrun 2 Coast to Coast. I don't think that's been ported to anything, right? Because that game looks really fun. Eric's Variety Channel, I may get attacked for saying this, but Final Fantasy VII is a great example of how amazing it looked on January 31st, 1997, but now not so much. Still an amazing game, though. Yeah, I think that's the one thing that I've noticed as well. Like, when you go back and look at some of these old 3D games, they just don't hold up. Like, it just doesn't work for me. Mario 64 is kind of the exception to that because that one seems to have its own, it's almost timeless in how well it was executed. But you're right. I mean, like a lot of these games just don't do it for me. Here's another 3D. That's right. 3DO was doing a lot of publishing at that point. So there's another example of that. Yeah, so if I were to rank the ones that I've received now, this is going to be probably on the bottom. I would follow that up with the Ultra Game Players that we got the prior month. We did get a Nintendo Power, which we saw before, but the best one I've received so far was the first one. This was a great one, because this is exactly like when I was into console gaming the most, when I had the money to actually buy stuff. It was when this one came out in May of '95, because I was working the summers and had some cash, so I could buy some video games. Probably would have been better investing that cash in the stock market back then, but, what are you going to do? Mark Smith, I'm assuming you mean Commander Keen looked good. Yeah, it was a pretty cool game on the PC because there wasn't platformer games, if you are indeed talking about Commander Keen. Trapezoid said Dark Cloud is still available, emulated on the PS4. Does Sony do the backwards compatibility as well as Microsoft? I don't think so, right? But not all the original Xbox games you can play on the current console. So I think there's definitely some disconnect there. Heffen wants to know, are there less games being made now or way more? You know what I would say is that there are more games, but they're harder to find. I would say that the big companies take far fewer risks now, so they're spending more time on single titles versus releasing a bunch. That's been something I've been observing. And actually, there's a topic of an upcoming video that I will be contributing to where I talk a little bit about this, because I think we're kind of in a golden age for games right now. But you've got to really hunt around to find them, right? Because the big publishers don't take any risks anymore. So it's all of these independent developers that are doing all the cool stuff. I wonder how many of these games got ported over or remastered on modern consoles. I bet you there's a bunch of them that have been. I'm sure there's some in there. And a lot of them, like if you look at with the Nintendo Switch, what's been neat about the Switch is that it really is like it's a generation and a half, maybe 2 generations behind, right? So if you look at the Series X and the PlayStation 5, you've got, some decent 4K performance. You had the Xbox One, which was, a bit of an enhancement over the 360's graphics, for example, in the PS3. But the Switch is kind of at the same performance level as the 360 and the PS3. So a lot of the games that were available on those consoles you're seeing ported over to the Switch so they can squeeze a little bit more money out of them. And it's been so long since a lot of people played them, they kind of like the idea of having them handheld, right? So that's something to look at. Mark Smith, I always thought Deer Hunter was funny. Eric says, yeah, it's true. I think the Nintendo 64 in particular really struggled, right? Because it didn't have, it just didn't have the horsepower. So it didn't have the memory or the horsepower to kind of do that kind of stuff. Let's see what else we got here. Kazi says, I should look into that. Yeah, it's a weird situation. I guess they could fix that in firmware before it goes kaput, but you've got like a ticking time bomb in your console, right? Things aren't what they used to be. That's for sure. My Game Boy still plays the games that I bought way back when. William Wilkinson says, you never know about the stock. That's true. The stock market does go up and down, but I would say like over, if you go from 1997 to now, I'd have far more money than I'd have game consoles, or I could buy more game consoles with the money I would have earned. Put some money into index funds and you're good. That's what I typically do with I have a little Robinhood account I play around with, so I have most of my money in index funds. And Mark Smith says the current publishers have too many sequels and upgrades. Yeah, there's not a lot of new stuff. And that's what I love about the VR thing, is that VR is like, there's so much experimentation going on that it reminds me a lot of like the old Atari 2600 days where everything was new and different. So that's kind of fun. Eric's Variety Channel is looking into the Rivian truck. I know somebody that pre-ordered one in town here, so I'm going to try to get them on to interview them and see what they got. Actually, better, I'd love to go see one in person. So they've got 2 trucks. They've got a pickup truck, which looks more like a pickup truck versus the wedge that Tesla's coming out with. And then they've got one that's more like a Range Rover with like a 3rd row seat. Looks pretty nice. I still want an electric minivan. I've got a Toyota Sienna, which I love, but I'd love to have an electric version of that. Ness Spooner likes holding the disc. I do like holding the discs too. I did like that quite a bit. And actually what I've been doing on my Switch is that I mostly buy the physical games because we are a 2-Switch household. I've got a mini, what do you call it, the Switch Lite. I've got a Lite and a regular Switch. And what I learned as I was researching that your games are not as portable between users if you only buy digital. And even crazier is that and I don't know if they've changed this yet or not, but on the Switch, if I am playing a digital game on Switch 1, Switch 2 cannot play any digital game at all if I'm playing any digital game on Switch 1. So it's, you know what I mean? So like if I'm playing, let's say I'm playing Mario 60, the Super Mario All-Star thing or whatever, on Switch 1, the digital version. If my daughter boots up the other Switch and tries to play any of the other games in my digital library, I won't let her play. It's stupid. So we've been just buying the cartridges for the games that have it. And Limited Run has been great because I've been buying some of those indie games on cartridge also. And then what's also nice about it is that you have a physical item that you can resell again. So if you get done with the game, you can sell the game. Go figure. Can't do that with the digital one. So you've got a lot more flexibility on the Switch if you buy the physical copy. Phil Smith says, I blame EA for sequels, FIFA, NBA, right, every year. Miss the 1980s for the originality of the games. I do think we're really getting back to more original titles. There's a lot of great indie stuff. And I think Nintendo, believe it or not, deserves a lot of credit for this because the Switch has become a really good outlet for these independent games. And what's neat is that I don't think we're as focused on graphics anymore as we used to be. So like when we were going through this magazine, everything was like 3D and awesome look, you know, like have to show the power of the hardware kind of stuff. And I think we're seeing now kind of a shift into more creative outlets. And a lot of the fun indie games are games that look like something you might play 20 or 30 years ago. So I would explore the Switch eShop. Metal Jesus has some great videos about some of the games that he's found on the Switch. Beat 'em Up Woods, he's a great YouTuber. He's got like a whole series of all these hidden gems he's finding on the Switch eShop. So definitely check it out. Metal Beer Solid says, yeah, I think my Dreamcast battery is long dead. I know that my Saturn's battery is dead, and they all still work just fine, for sure. MSX Droid can still play his 1984-85 MSX games. Actually, that 2GS behind me still works too. I just got to change out the power supply. No problem, boots right up. Recipe Bob's got the Anbernic 351M. Very good emulation and portable. And BB Garnett says, maybe NFTs will change things. Yeah, so this was a topic that I covered on the weekly wrap-up, and I know BB Garnett is a fan of most of what I upload, so I'm sure you've seen it. But I think that is something we're going to see, which is that I don't know if it's going to be an NFT specifically or an NFT-like kind of thing, but I suspect you're going to see a lot of independent game developers get together and issue a number of NFT kind of tokens for unlocking digital games. So you buy the NFT token, you play the game. When you're done with it, you can just sit on it, or you could sell it to somebody else. And one of the neat things that I saw in researching NFTs is that you can carve out a royalty to go to the original creator. Now, a lot of you may not like the idea of the original creator getting a royalty on every resell, but I think what's neat about this is that this is what gives publishers, large and small, some incentive to consider that. So when you think about where we're at right now you buy a digital game, you cannot resell it. In fact, you don't even own it, because it's a license that you're essentially buying access to. So if you think about the NFT model, you buy a non-fungible token that allows you to play that game so long as you are the owner of the token. When you're done with the game, you sell the token to somebody. Maybe the original creator gets 5 or 10% or whatever of that sale, and you can transfer ownership of the game and get some money back. And I think that's going to be the trade-off. You can't have everything, right? The publisher wants royalties. You want to sell your game. Right now, neither gets any of that. So, could be that. And maybe what it is that, they lower the royalty rate the older the game gets. I don't know. We'll have to see how it plays out. But I think that's a very likely scenario, because I think they've been looking for a path to that. The Link to the Past randomizer on my laptop, and I can't even tell you the last time. Yeah, I usually just play, if I'm playing classic games, it's on the Mister or on the Switch, one of the two. And Brandon says the Saturn is easy to swap out. Yep, just open the door on the back. Actually, you know what I did is I bought a second one of those Node devices. So we're going to have another video where we install that in my Dreamcast or my Saturn, or maybe a live stream. And Eric doesn't mind the original creator getting a royalty. I don't either, especially if it's an independent artist, right? Because this is something we've talked about before on the channel in relation to emulation, right? So, if I've got a stack of old Nintendo games back there, if I sell that cartridge to Eric's Variety Channel, I get money. Nintendo doesn't see a dime of it, right? And we're often talking about whether or not it's piracy, to download a ROM, for example. But if you can't buy the game anywhere, and even if you bought the original, the legit copy, the developer's not seeing anything out of that $50 you might spend on a collectible game, right? Frank Cromer says, it's not electric, but have you seen the Rezvani? No, I have not seen that. The Rezvani truck. There's all sorts of new vehicles coming out, right? So, oh wow, that thing looks pretty wild. It's like a Jeep on steroids. It's not electric though, huh? That's pretty cool. Home Movie Uploads gets a kick out of playing 8-bit games more on more powerful computers and compatibility. Everything plays, right, makes you play better. Actually, what's also cool is that on the Super Nintendo, you've got these flash cartridges with FPGAs on them. And a lot of homebrew people have been out trying to make some of the games that have really bad slowdown on the Super Nintendo play at a regular frame rate. I think Gradius 3 is one of those. So that's something you'll see quite a bit of now. You're trying to make some of these games that are plagued by slowdown actually run better. Destructo Disc says, if the publisher already has rights to the game, why can't they just sell another digital copy? You know, it's mixed. I think what's happened is that sometimes the license holder kind of disappears, so they don't always own it. That's what TrapExit kind of points on also. It's the management of these licenses over time. You've got you have scenarios like, I'm trying to think, actually Ace Combat's a great example. So Ace Combat has licensed the aircraft that they're using in the game from Lockheed Martin, who owns that. I guess you have to license the aircraft because of the likeness, right? So let's say 30 years from now, not only do you have to negotiate a license with whoever holds the rights to the game, the rights to the assets that are licensed in the game have to be negotiated also. So it gets really complicated, which is why you'll never see, for example, Nintendo sell the Coleco version of Donkey Kong ever again, right? Like that's the kind of stuff. Like who even owns, well, there's that holding company that owns Coleco, but they can't publish half the games that were on the Coleco because of licensing and everything else. BB Garnett says Toyota has a new car using hydrogen batteries. There's a lot of neat stuff going on right now. Recipe Bob says, why doesn't Nintendo sell ROMs? I would say right now because they're getting you to buy a subscription, which is far more lucrative. But you can on Steam, if you buy the Sega Genesis collection on Steam, inside the download are ROMs. In fact, I did a video where we extracted the ROM and loaded it up on a real Genesis. So I think there's not many that do this, but Sega is one of them that allows, somehow allows you to extract the ROMs and buy them legally. And I was hoping more publishers would do that. But I think NFTs might be the way that we see this this compromise continue in the future. And they also create some scarcity. So in the case of an NFT unlocked game, it's similar to having a cartridge in that, if there's only so many cartridges out there, and it's not hard to figure out who gets the royalty on the future sales, although that could be a contention for some of the licensing that they do for assets in the game. It's all very complicated. I'm glad I'm not a game publisher or a lawyer. Eric says he wouldn't mind getting a Mister at some point. Yeah, Misters are great to play with. They're such a fun thing to tinker with. TrapExit's wife worked in foreign rights in the book publishing space. That is a nightmare. I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine what a nightmare that must be like. Ness Spooner says Total Annihilation still plays on Windows 7. Recipe Bob plays a lot of ZX Spectrum games. I never got into the ZX Spectrum. It wasn't available where I was. I have the Timex Sinclair 1000, which is a American version of that. But yeah, this is not. So this is the thing. Like if you were a game publisher with sub-licenses or sub-licensees in the game, or you were licensing something in the game, I would imagine that if there was a mechanism by which future sales generated a royalty, part of the agreement to license the content would require the license holder to give a cut to the license that they're getting for parts of the assets of the game, right? So you would agree in your license to use the F-15 fighter, right? You would agree to give Lockheed Martin X percentage of future royalties on that sale of the game, which may be an impediment, But it also could lead to creativity, because if you make your own airplane, you don't have to license the F-15, right? And you don't have to have an airplane that actually flies in real life in a video game. It just has to look cool. So, Computer Guy asks, what is my opinion of the new 24-inch M1 iMacs? I think they look pretty cool. Oddly, though, if you want the Ethernet version, the Ethernet is in the power adapter because they couldn't fit it in the case. It's so thin. So that was kind of funny. I'm not getting one. I was thinking about it, but I'm not going to get one. I'm going to wait until the new MacBook Pros come out, and then I'm going to upgrade to that. I'm going to give Jake, my editor, the other Mac that I have, and then we're going to retire the 2012 one that he's been using for the last 2 or 3 years. That thing still works great. But yeah, I have an iMac now that works fine. It's about 6 years old at this point. It's as old as my daughter, but it works great. So I'm not going to upgrade until it's dead, or I can't edit my video on it anymore. But they look cool. I think they're going to sell. And what's nice about them is that they're all solid state now. So the hard drive crashing and having to take the computer apart issues are not there. I will say, though, that I don't like having a system that's so tightly integrated, because if one component goes, you're out of luck, right? So the Mac Mini is the one that, if I was to buy a Mac desktop right now, that's the one I would get. And they have a new one now with a 10 gig thing on it. And Drew makes another good point here, that they'd rather sell the hardware at $80. Exactly. Exactly. Mark Smith, yes, music. Actually, I got a story about that. I had a conference this is years and years ago, but I had a conference that I was going to, and they wanted me to make a quick little video to open the conference up. So I was happy to help them with that. And there was a song that worked really well. It's a popular song that worked really well for the opening music. And in the course of the event, no big deal, but they also wanted to put it on YouTube back then, and I knew there'd be copyright issues, because back then you didn't have the content ID where they just take the revenue. And so what I learned the hard way is that you have the rights to the song lyrics, and then you've got the publishing rights. And there was like 2 different people we had to go to. And the crazy thing was, I got the artist on the phone. His sister was like the manager of this thing. So they wanted to submit this. They were totally cool with it, but they're like, they had no ownership at all of the song that they recorded, at all. They were getting royalties from it, from who did own it, but they had no ownership. So they were totally cool with us using it, but it was a mess. So that's why whenever I have music to use, I go to the YouTube music library and use that. So Eric bought my old laptop. It sounds like it's going to launch into space. I'm editing a video. Yeah, that thing likes to have the fans going, keep it cool. Destructo says, one day we might have real digital game collections. It's true. I think we will. But in the meantime, we've got what we've got, which isn't so great. If one had an old laptop, an XPS Studio 17, where the battery expired and there is not a replacement available, it's not junk, what would I do? Well, it's funny, because now this is older than that laptop, but I have an old laptop like that right here. And this one I just disposed of the batteries. I recycled them, and it doesn't, actually, this one would work without a battery. If you have this was modular, so it has a CD-ROM module on it. I'll pull off the thing here. So this one had a CD-ROM module. And I'll give you another view of it here. So this had a CD-ROM module and a floppy module. And so this is like my retro laptop. If I want to run old Windows stuff, I just boot this thing up. And I've got all of that. So yeah, I think they're still useful without the battery. That's what I would say, if it still works. I don't like to throw, I keep using things until I just have no use for them. Like they don't do what I need them to do. But, like my MacBook Pro, I bought that 5 years ago, the one I'm using now. So it was the first 2016, the new Mac with the lousy keyboard. And so that's been working fine. I did switch out my 12-inch MacBook for the MacBook Air with the M1, and the M1's become my daily driver. It's that good. It's been really good. So, but I just don't. I don't need to upgrade all my stuff to M1 because the other stuff I have is working fine. So I don't need to go there. My MacBook Pro, the 2016, I'd probably still be using had the keyboard not been such a disaster on it. It's really kind of sad. I'm glad they went back to the other keyboards because this M1 is much better. And the SSDs are great. Yep. In fact, I upgraded. So this one, and we did a live stream about this. If you go back and look in my live stream archive, this one, what I did is I took out the hard drive and I'm running it off of a compact flash adapter. So they've got these cool compact flash adapters that allow you to use a compact flash card as an IDE hard drive. It's really cool stuff. Yeah, here's another great point. Lots of TV shows have music issues. Wonder Years is a famous example of many songs being locked up. Even relatively recent shows, that's right, they had to replace the music. Exactly, very complicated. And then even like stuff like Beavis and Butthead. You ever seen like the video games of Beavis and Butthead or Beavis and Butthead outside of MTV? Like their shirts would not have AC/DC and Megadeth on them or whatever they'd normally have, right? Because they have to license the logo of the band for that. Back to the all-in-one computer thing. Yeah, same problem, right? You lose one component, you have three things in one. If one thing goes, all three don't work. MSX Droid says that laptop has a PC MCIA card inside with a network and a modem. Yes, I don't know where it came from because I don't remember buying it, but I may have like grabbed it out of somebody else's computer or something. But this is a Zircom adapter, and it's got and it's actually kind of cool because it is a 100 megabit Ethernet card, and it is a modem. And what's cool is that it's got a pass-through for the phone, so you can actually plug a phone into it, and right here. I don't think it's got voice on it. And this is a late model thing. This was released in 1999, I think. So it's more new when it comes to these kinds of cards. And it looks like it's a card bus card, I think. So it's a little faster. And then it's got this, oh, I see. So it's kind of funny. So it's got lights on there. So there's like lights to indicate activity. And then it has, I'm not sure what this USB-looking port is for. I can't remember what that's for. But it's pretty cool. But I have not connected this to the network because it's running Windows 98, and I'm terrified of doing that. Joseph's asking, as a daily driver, yes, I do use it for video editing. Now, granted, I'm just doing 1080p video editing, so this doesn't strain it too much. But I use it for everything. I do a little bit of, it depends on, by the way, it depends on where in the house I'm located. But typically, so I'll give you the scenarios here. Down here in the office, I've got a little desk set up over there, and that's where the iMac is. So I do edit on the iMac. I would say about 25% of the stuff I upload comes from the iMac. The other 75% comes from the M1 here. I hit the button there. And what I do with this M1 is it usually sits on my kitchen counter. So I do some edits from there. And then when I go upstairs, I dock it to a Thunderbolt dock, and then I've got it on my widescreen display, and I use it up there as well as a desktop. And it's great. I mean, it doesn't make any noise. It's completely quiet. Logic KGR gets the win for the Beavis and Butthead reference. I got to take it off quick before it's a family show, but I had to put that one up there. Yeah. I don't know where that card came from, but it was probably, I forgot where it came from. Maybe I did buy it. I don't even remember. Those Zircom cards were fantastic. Yeah, it's nice to have everything in one. Granted, it's one card that takes up 2 slots. So normally you'd have, 2 cards that could go in here. So what I usually did with this machine, actually about 20 years ago is when I started doing the Wi-Fi stuff. So when I got, the Wi-Fi cards initially were PC MCIA cards. I would just slide them into the Orinoco adapters. I think the Orinoco cards are the ones that I had. And I would connect those to my Linksys router access point on my DSL connection. And I'll tell you, when Wi-Fi first came out, it was mind-blowing that it worked at all, and it worked as far as it did. So I had, it's behind those little arcade things back there, but you see that compact Pocket PC? So they had an adapter for the Pocket PC that would allow you to take these PC MCIA cards and slide them in on a little sled. And so I put a Wi-Fi card in that little compact thing, and then I just walked all over my house, like around my house, to see how far I could go. And I was like out at the street on my Wi-Fi with that thing, and I was like, this is a revelation. Like, you didn't realize, like, before Wi-Fi, you had to be plugged into something all the time. I used to have my Mac, what's it called, the PowerBook. I had a modem on the PowerBook, and I had this phone cord on a spool. And so if I wanted to sit on the couch with my computer, I had to run the spool from the phone jack to the couch. So it was kind of mind-blowing to have that. Drew says we need zip drive adapters. That would have been kind of neat to have an internal zip drive. Elaine wants to know, what do I use for editing on the iMac? I use Final Cut Pro. I've been using Final Cut Pro for, geez, about a decade now, if not longer. And it's funny, the day that Final Cut Pro 10 came out, I was at NASA. I actually downloaded the first version at NASA when I got a tour of Space Shuttle Discovery. It was so cool. So that was neat. If you had a stellar wireless setup but your PS5 struggles to download and running Cat 5 is prohibitive, what would I do? Mocha. Look it up. On my channel, I got a whole bunch of stuff on it. If you've got cable TV wiring, Mocha is going to solve your problem. So much so that we haven't done a video on Mocha because there's not much more to talk about. It just works. I'm going to try to get in one of those 2.5 gigabit versions to see how it does, because they have some now with 2.5 gigabit Ethernet. Question from Eric's Variety Channel. Most of the time I use my Ryzen 2700X for editing, but my wife was sleeping in the room where that is, so I had to use the laptop today. Yeah, that thing makes a lot of noise cooling itself off, for sure, but it stays cool. It actually keeps itself running consistently. So Thomas Woodford had a zip drive on one of his old computers, but I found that I never used it. I used the zip drive extensively in 97 and 98, and a little bit further than that too, because back then the hard drives were super expensive, so zip drives on a per megabyte basis were less costly. So I had a whole stack of them, and I would put MP3 files on them, right? I do that because you could fit a lot more music on a zip drive compressed than you could on a CD, and I didn't have a CD burner at that point. But once the CD burners came out, the zip drive became less useful, and of course the cost of storage came down a lot. So it works good. Mark Smith said, at work we had coax Ethernet, and there were dead spots you couldn't reach. Yeah, there's coax Ethernet was really complex. I found it to be complex because you had to have everything in a constant loop, and you had all the collisions and all the other stuff. But Mocha works really well. Eric's been using Mocha since 2017. Yeah, once you get them set up and you get all the kinks worked out, they just work. Very low latency on it also, so it works out really well. It's good stuff. So, all right, everybody, I am going to call it an evening because the kids are coming home soon, and I've got to get some stuff edited. I'm not going to upload tonight, but I'm trying to get ahead of the game because I've got 2 videos in the hopper, which is unusual for me. So we've got a new Plex video coming out tomorrow. We've got the Asus Chrome box review coming up soon, so be on the lookout for that. And yeah, I'll be back streaming. I might come back and stream tomorrow, depending on where I'm at with things, because my plan tomorrow is to have one of those planning days where I tinker with stuff. I might play around with that QNAP NAS device and see what we can do with a 2.5 gigabit NAS box. That'd be kind of fun. So there you go. Sir Jonathan, thank you for the follow on Amazon. Appreciate that. Matthew's wondering if I talked about the war with Google and Roku. I have not yet. I just read about it yesterday. And I think it involves YouTube TV and not YouTube. But this is like you know, back in my day, you had VHS and beta. That was bad enough. And now you've got like these constant battles over nothing. So I don't think it's about YouTube. I think it's about YouTube TV. And it sounds like it's kind of one of these privacy fights like Apple's having with Facebook. So we shall see what happens there. But I appreciate you all tuning in. And set your notifications. And by the way, if you don't get the YouTube notifications, I would go follow me on Amazon with the link that you see in the video description. And you can get notified there. And they're usually pretty good about doing that. So check it out. And let me just add my going away image here. And I'm going to close this out here. And yeah, good stuff. And I will look and see if there's any MSX books out there. I bet you there's probably some self-published book for sure on the MSX. And if not, there's an opportunity for you because I think there is a lot of love for the MSX platform for sure. All right, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in, and I will be back again very soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.